I worked in a Hofbrauhaus in Connecticut, and I also was part of something called the Long Wharf Theater, which exists to this day, and I did the children's theater there. But in opera, I worked with probably three of the greatest directors ever. One was Giorgio Strehler, who was Italian and did the Piccolo Scala, Jean-Pierre Ponel, and Sir Peter Hall. And, you know, you just sit at their feet and listen to them. Giorgio was a total madman. I mean, he was incredible. And he would do, I did the Marriage of Hero with him, and he would start, we would do a recitative in the first act of the Marriage of Figaro. The Marriage of Figaro was like 4.5 hours long. And he would take the whole morning doing one recit to get it just right. And I mean, it was like being handed acting on a silver plate, you know. It was amazing.
That's marvelous.
Oh, I'll tell you a funny story about Peter Hall. When I worked with him, he was at Glyndebourne, and he was doing the most sensational production with Jane Janet Baker of Ulysses. And in the beginning of Ulysses, L'umanità fragilità, human frailty, comes out, and in this production, she was completely naked with a long wig. And so, you know, all the stagehands would be gathered around for this scene. And so Peter, at one point, so nudity was sort of in the air that summer. And Peter came to me and he wanted me to do Cherubino with my, you know, bare-chested, bare-backed, to the public for the dressing scene with Susanna. And I knew that he, to convince this gal to do the nudity, had walked her around the lake at Glyndebourne. And I said, Peter, don't even try. You'd have to walk me around Lake Michigan to get me to do it. I'm not doing it. So it was funny. I didn't do it.
Another lesson there, you have to learn how to say no at the right time, I think. Anybody else have anything they'd love to ask? Oh, okay. Yes, I see it.
I know as a kid I used to gather my family anywhere and perform for them. And all I remember that the song that I always did was, whatever Lula wants, Lula gets. Because I loved show tunes. I don't know, I just
loved singing.
Just loved singing. I used to sing as a kid all the time. My dad was killed in the war, but he'd been a terrific pianist. And I think my mom having show tunes on all the time. And, you know, after the war, from 1939 on, think of the shows we had in the United States. I mean, it's some of the greatest. There are treasures, Carousel, and everything, you know. So my joy was I grew up with my best friend, who's a marvelous artist now, and it was a safe enough world. We would go take the train to New York, we'd see a matinee, go stand outside of the Metropolitan Cafe to hear the jazz, and then go to the evening show, and then take the train back. And I saw Ethel Merman 3 or 4 times, you know. I think I didn't want to be an opera singer, I wanted to be a Broadway singer. But I went around. And it's a nice life being an opera singer. You know, it's wonderful that you all are supporting this wonderful event on Sunday and being interested in the kids, because for them it's their life. It's everything they want in the world, and unless you've been there, you almost can't imagine it. It's as strong a passion as almost anything. And they've spent hours and weeks and months and years working on every little phrase and every word. And when you are preparing an aria, it takes forever, and you never think you get it right. It's also the one musical expression where we're the only people that really face the public totally. Everyone else has an instrument, and we can see the faces, and that's our privilege, but it's also a big undertaking, so thank you so much for what you're doing and supporting this organization, and more than anything, music, opera, and the kids.
Well, we want to thank you for being here and being so gracious. Thanks so much.
And I want to thank both, thank you very, very much. You could probably talk for hours. I think you'll probably want to say a few things to Flicka before she retires, but we have 2 more days of her, and I have her doing a lot of things, and she's very generous. But you don't have to overdo it, so I have to keep you fresh for the rest of the day, the rest of the week. But I also have to thank Melinda very, very much, because Melinda does this thing so well. I think it's so all of the things, and I feel Melinda's probably a very good reviewer and writer, she is, of course, and a talker, as we've seen, but also is a composer in her own right, and does a lot of choral music especially, and writes. She's just finished a book about the Seattle Opera, 50 years of Seattle Opera, and is doing now one about the musicians through the years in Seattle, and a few other little things I'm sure up her sleeve. So thank you all for being here. Thank you both very, very much. And I will look at our schedule. I know you all know it, but I will mention this, because I didn't get to talk much. I'm not warming up, no. Flicka talked about, and I talked about before, about what it takes to be a singer. How do we say to young singers that, a career in opera is not, or an opera career is not really something you choose, it's something that chooses you, and it's really true. And if that's not the case, you're not going to make it. It's got to be something you are intent on doing, because it's very, very hard, and it takes a lot out of you, but it's very fulfilling if you can do it. And I was saying, you'll hear 11 singers that are all pretty darn good Sunday, but you'll say, well, the last one is number 10, number 9. But even at that, you say, wow, man, the amount of training and time and money and energy that went into that, to getting on stage. I'll finish this a little bit by keep my wife happy. She's looking at me. Thank you, dear. I always talk about it's funny. I think singers have a little bit harder in one respect, in that very few of us think we want to be ballet. I would never want to be ballerina, but there's still time. But be a dancer, because you can dance. Little kids dance, but they don't necessarily keep it up because you can't. But everyone can sing. We all know that, right? America's Got Talent, all that stuff. We all can sing. What's the big deal? Now, there's a very long preamble to saying one of the things we do. The last year we started, and a lot of people came and were amazed at how interesting it was. There's a master class tomorrow afternoon, and to see